All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, April 11th. I am going to start by closing the executive session and resuming the public meeting, and we'll start with roll call. Commissioner Briscoe?
Here.
Commissioner Bell?
Here.
And Commissioner Shepard is here as well. All three commissioners are present. I'm going to start out with reading our advisory meeting schedule, and then we'll move to public comment and then get on with our regular business. Our first advisory committee meeting is the BIAC, or the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee. Their next meeting is April 13th at 4 p.m., and that's a Zoom-based meeting, Zoom only. The other meeting we have is the Marina Advisory Committee, or the MAC. Their next meeting is April 18th, and that's 6 to 8 p.m. here in Harbor Center Conference Room, and that's an in-person meeting only. Next, we'll move into public comment. If you're on Zoom, we'll have options for public comment, or if you're in the room, we ask you to keep those public comments to 3 minutes in length. Carrie, do we have anyone signed up here? Is there anyone in the room who would like to provide public comment? Seeing none, do we have anyone on Zoom who would like to provide public comment? You can raise your hand or unmute yourself. Not seeing anyone, we will have one more option for public comment at the end of our regular business. With that, I'll move on to our consent agenda. Carrie, would you like to read the motion?
Sure. We're gonna pull item L and move it to our first action item. So I motion to approve consent agenda items A through K and M through O.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Questions or comments? Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I have none.
All right. Commissioner Bell?
Yes, I just had one. The action item, I don't have it in front of me right now, but the action item on the site conditions that created the $150,000 charge on the F Street fire suppression. Let me see what action item that one is.
That's J. That's
J.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay. Just wondering what the conditions were that created.
Is Mr. Nichols here?
Hey, Greg.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Greg Nickel, Engineering Program Manager.
Sorry for not giving you a heads up on that.
What ultimately happened was that the engineer designed the system assuming a building height of 32 feet. The building height is actually 35 feet, which kicks us into a different pressure category, and the existing infrastructure is not sufficient to provide the required pressure at that building height. So we have to install a new 10-inch line between the main riser room to the auxiliary riser room, as well as adding an additional 8-inch line to provide additional pressure to zone 2 in the building.
Because we thought the building was 33 and it's actually 35?
That's correct. By going that distance, it puts us into a different category in NFPA requirements,
No,
and so the pressure required goes up.
just wondering why we didn't measure twice and,
Well, I don't think we installed Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but we didn't install the wrong equipment. It's just what was in there isn't sufficient for a 35-foot height. It's sufficient for a 32 for the upgrades we were trying to make.
So what the project was is we were converting from a dry system to a wet system to accommodate additional storage. And unfortunately, the design engineer incorrectly measured the building height at 32 feet rather than 35 feet. The good news is that no work was completed before that discovery, but it was discovered after the contract was awarded. And so unfortunately, we're doing this by change order rather than including it in the original bid documents.
okay. That's all I had.
And I had a question on E. We are adopting a new agreement with our management service for parking. And I just wanted to see, we're extending the time period, and the last 2 times I've gone through airport parking, I've noticed some challenges with the parking readers. One time I went through and it wasn't producing any receipts, and so it was Tamara and I had to work to get my receipt allocated so we could get it all to the auditor, and it was all correct. And then the other time, both the person in my lane and the next one were having trouble getting the cards to be read to make their payment as they were leaving the value lot. So I've just seen 2 things myself and wanted to see if we feel like we're happy with the service provider sufficiently to be renewing this lease.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioner Sunil Harman, Director of Aviation. I've heard similar complaints, that's why I have 2 related items there. One is that everybody's challenged in terms of labor. And so we were able to negotiate a 3% increase with this one year extension, which is extremely favorable. If we'd gone out on the street with a 5-year contract at this time, we would have probably seen a 30-35% increase. And it's primarily driven by labor. The other thing is the equipment that you're referring to in the parking lots is now about 6 years old. It is aging, and we have a agreement now in place with the same company to provide some upgrades that makes it easier to secure receipts by phone, by email, so you don't actually have to obtain a physical receipt. We're also having other features that are enhanced in paying and conducting cashless transactions. So it should improve the experience, and that's why those 2 items are on the agenda today.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for the consent? All right, hearing none. Carrie?
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through K and M through O.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
And Commissioner Shepherd is a yes as well. Passes 3-0. We will move on to action item 1, which is going to be L, consent agenda item L.
Sure.
And this will be Brian Gowen.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You
Just
want me to
reminder, you're going to read the motion, but
Carrie will read the motion, please.
the motion quick?
Thank you.
A motion to authorize the executive director to execute an option to purchase real property between the Board Mill Group LLC and the Port of Bellingham for approximately 5.3 acres in the waterfront district.
thanks, Gary. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowen, Director of Environmental and Planning Services. So yeah, thanks for pulling this one off the consent agenda. This is really an exciting action item that we have before you for consideration. It's related to the ongoing work that we've been working for over a year on with the Board Mill Group, and really great internal team led by Elliot and Terry and Noah in real estate, and then CSD, John Sitkin and Holly and Tim have been great, in addition to our external team stakeholder group that helped with the RFP process. So it's been a really great team from day one, and then really the past year plus has been a pleasure to work with the Board Mill Group. I mean, both constructive discussions about the option, which I'll go over here. Really some challenging discussions, which have been helpful to kind of come forward with new designs that really make this even better. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the option, and then I'll pass it over to Sean from Haven Design, who's the architect as well as a principal in the Board Mill Group, to talk through their design. So just a really great team. Very present, available. We've met almost weekly for the past year plus, and have come up with something I think that we have really looked forward to moving forward to the next stage. So just as a reminder, this is an option to purchase. As a result of the RFP process where we had some submittals and selected ultimately the Board Mill Group to go with. It's a very similar setup of the option framework as we have as other agreements in the waterfront with Harcourt and Millworks, who's actually a subsequent action item on the agenda today. This one's a little different in the sense that there are 3 distinct phases or projects within this option. Covers about 5 acres. And just for reference of what the terminology we'll use is the Board Mill Hotel, the Board Mill Residential, and the Board Mill Park buildings. Those are the 3 elements or phases. This is an option to purchase along with a performance addendum, which is very similar to the Millworks option that we agreed to last year. It has a step-by-step process where the project proponents will bring forward a concept. It'll come forward to the commission, go through the city's process with design review. Any changes that come out of that will then come back to the commission for subsequent steps till there's finally a final permitted project that will get along with the purchase and sale agreement, at which time then we'll consider an actual property sale. So I'll walk through those steps in a little more detail here in a second. And then the one piece to consider here is that these are projects that can be submitted together or in individual phases as well. So we anticipate that the initial package that will be submitted will be for all 3 projects to show how it functions together as a concept, and then going through the city's process will be probably more individual on a project-by-project basis for the hotel and the residential and the board mill. And then we've got some timelines that are associated with that, which I'll go through here as well.
So, Brian, given that there's 3 phases, are there going to be 3 separate land sale transactions?
That's right. That's anticipated. They could be packaged. Maybe 2 of them come together at the same time. Maybe there are 3 individual sales. But yeah, that's the way that the option is set up, is it has the flexibility to do that. I anticipate that some of them could be packaged, but the timing of the park building, for example, probably has a little more complexity to it. Working with the city, may have some agreements with the city that we have to work through that may change the time frame of that. But if that all gets worked out and we can do them all together, that's an option too. So some of the elements that are included in this are the land valuation. So consistent with the other agreements and the appraisals that we've had in the waterfront district, we have a $25.50 per square foot value currently, with an adjustment annually at 3%. The option term is through June of 2027, with the provision that if there's any land use appeals from a third party that's outside of our control or the board mill group's control, that extension, that option could be extended for a couple of years, because that'd be something that'd be outside of our control. It seems unlikely to us. We haven't had any appeals on any of the projects to date, but it is something that could happen through the city's process. One of the requirements that came up, or agreements, I guess I'd say, that we came to was, that this was a soft branded hotel. We issued an RFP for a boutique type of hotel. We're trying to avoid a splashy, flashy, Holiday Inn feel in the downtown waterfront, but really have it be more integrated in the fabric of the downtown feel that we're trying to get. So there's a variety of ways that could be accomplished through an independent operator like Bellwether, or there's some soft brands that are just kind of subtle that are associated with the more major brands. Both of those would work, but then we wanted to make sure that we're all agreeing what the idea is before we get too far down the road with, and that's a piece of this. There's a $60,000 option fee that's associated with this. If each project goes forward, that would be credited at $20,000 per project would be credited back to the purchase price. But there's a certain date that if the option is not exercised, that would be retained by the port. There's a separate environmental agreement that's currently under preparation. It's kind of in parallel. That's very similar to what we did with Mercy, so that's kind of it's common that we did it that way. Is that there's enough complexities on who's required to do what, some of it depending on the design of the projects, that we'll be working in parallel as the designs go forward on this separate environmental agreement. And at the second stage, where the projects come back for future commission approval, we'll have the environmental agreement ready for your consideration at that point too. The first submittal, which is the project concept design, that's due to the port by July 11th of this summer. So that's coming. As you'll see when Sean goes through the designs, they're actually very, very close already. I think there's a lot of great work that has come out of this past year on the design, but working with the city and other things that might need to be refined. So July this summer, we should expect to see that. And then we have a final occupancy date for all phases by the end of 2028. And the asterisk there is just as a reminder that we issued an RFP for a hotel, so we wanted to make sure that that was a key part as the first project and not kind of the last one that comes along after all the other projects have been done. So that's been agreed to, that it would be, the hotel would be completed before or at the same time as the other projects. And that's the summary of the performance, or of the option and the performance addendum. Staff recommends approval. We think this fits with all the intended responses from the RFP of things we'd asked for. And I'd be happy to address any questions now, or if Sean, if you wanted to come up and walk through your slides, we can address any questions when Sean's done as well. But if you have any specifically on the option, I'm happy to address that now. Okay. So I'll pass it over to Sean. I'll let you introduce yourself and then just pan down and you're good to go.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Sean Hagstead from Haven Design Workshop. I'm also one of 4 members of the Board Mill Group. And it's Michael Waters, we have Raymond Faber and Ben Faber, and then also Ellie Samuel. So it's a good group of people. I'm excited to present the design. It's coming along, and we've definitely kind of modified as we've talked further and further about options and how we can go forward. One of the key changes that we made is we removed the vast majority of the surface parking. So by being able to purchase the property behind that against the railroad tracks to provide parking for our project and adjacent properties, that really helped a lot. And so it provided a much more open space in between the properties and the projects. So we were excited about that. So I'm going to walk it through as far as, we'll start with the Board Mill Hotel. It's pretty straightforward, and I don't know if cursors are going to make the most sense. But the idea and the concept is that we are going to have the Board Mill Hotel is going to be an existing Board Mill building. We're looking at expanding toward the park. When we're expanding, and in that area, we're putting meeting rooms. We're putting a banquet hall that's about 300 occupant load, and then directly adjacent to that on the outside, we're also going to be putting outdoor areas for gathering, which is a lot of fun. Additionally, we're going to have in that building, we're going to have a restaurant bar, and that's also going to spill out to the courtyard in between the 2 spaces. That faces south in general terms. It's kind of like southwest a little bit. And then we're going to also have a large marketplace, is what we're calling it, where there's going to be some food vendors, some craft vendors, and some other things. And that's going to be about 8,000 square feet. And so we really are excited about that piece. And that's going to be directly across from trackside. And so you can see that public walk going across there. We'll have access into that area right off of there. So we think that's going to add to the ability to activate that space and activate the port, which we're really excited about. In addition, on the Board Mill Hotel itself, it's going to be 4 stories. So we're looking at adding an intermediate floor that's currently between the current 2nd floor and the ceiling, the roof. And then we're going to add a top floor, which is the 4th floor. And so there'll be about 107 total rooms. And it's just going to be a nice space. And we're looking for kind of an industrial timber kind of feel for the space that matches the area, the location, the history of the site. And we're really excited about that. So that's the first building that we're going to be doing. We're planning on building the residential building at the same time and completing it basically at the same time for economic reasons. But like Brian said, the park building, we have to work through some things with the Parks Department, the city, and some other things. So we don't know if that's going to be able to come along at the same time. Ideally, we'd be pretty close in the end that they'd finish at the same time. We're not certain on that yet. So the residential building is a unique building. It's going to be a 7-story building. We're looking at doing either a 6/1 or a 4/3 as far as construction type. So it's going to be a mix of wood frame construction and concrete frame construction. We don't want the building to be too heavy, so we're going to be working with the contractor, which is also our partner in this, to try to make the building as light as possible because of loads on the building. And we're going to be doing a lot of piles, so the less piles we have, the better. So that's going to be an interesting building. There's quite a bit on that building. There's 163 total units, residential units. We're proposing about a 1,700 square foot fitness center. And then we have 5,700 square feet of commercial space that's right along the park side. And so we haven't programmed that as far as what type of uses are in there, but there's options for potentially the spa going in that area. We may do some restaurants in that location, so we're still programming what will go there, but we have a pretty good idea of activating that space on the park side as well. We have additionally on the 3rd floor of the building, we have a large gathering space that's for the residents and maybe for additional public use. And then underneath the building, we have 229 parking spaces. And so that's a pretty important piece. So that building, and there's 9 parking spaces on the roundabout there that's going to be able to occupy, provide enough parking per city standard for that project without the park building, which was important for us to get that underway so that we could have them go separately without any problems down the road. And so we kind of made sure we could accommodate that with our design concept. And then the park building is kind of the last building. We will have a sky bridge going on the second level over to the residential building for additional parking access. And then that will be a significant amount of parking in that. We have 79 units of apartments, and then we have anywhere from 330 to 438 parking spaces in there. And then the best part of that part of the project is the large stair to a public park that's going to be privately owned, privately maintained, but it'll be a public park. And that's currently one of the things we need to talk to the Parks Department on, how to structure that and what that's going to look like. But from the talks of it, it sounds like they're okay with the concept and the overall idea of that. So I'm going to continue on to more slides.
Before you leave that,
Yes.
are there no parking requirements for the hotel?
Yes, but we can accommodate that underneath our residential building.
So you don't have to put in parking for a hotel, but.
You do.
Oh, you do?
You do. So for the hotel, I'm just saying there's sufficient parking on that portion of the site for both buildings.
For both buildings?
Yeah, so for the city requirements for the hotel, you need half a car per room.
Car per room.
So that's their standard. We don't think that's enough, but that's why we're building additional parking for other things. But we will meet the city standard with that requirement.
So that's around 50 spaces for the hotel at minimum, and then plus those needed for the residential.
Yeah, there's about 170 some spaces additional.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm good. Follow up on that too. So I did the math on your residential.
Yeah.
You said 129 spaces under the residential, but you've got 169 units.
Yeah. The city standards are very low. Their requirements are significantly lower than what we want to provide. I'm just saying we've provided enough per city requirement. We don't think it's enough, and that's why we want the parking structure. We have to have it to make it
Right.
work. Yes. If I remember, I don't recall exactly, but it might be like for a studio and one bedroom, like 0.75 parking spaces. I mean, it's pretty low. And so we were able to achieve that. And the calculations, I don't know if you guys got the PDF of the document, but we calculate all of that on there, on that site plan. You can look at that if you want further feedback on that.
I just wanted to go on record that that's the city requiring that.
Yes,
Because they're going to bitch at us when there's not enough parking.
I understand. And the
We're
nice
gonna-
thing is we're providing, per our option agreement, we're providing about 40% in the park building, 40% additional parking for the public at large. So that's part of it too.
And will that be like a
Can you-
paid parking?
How many spaces were in that added parking? How many spaces overall? I didn't catch that number.
So for the park building, we have anywhere from 330 parking spaces to 438. And it depends
Okay,
on how
thank
we build it out.
And do you plan that to be like a paid parking where people are paying if they're public who are coming down to use amenities at the rest of the waterfront?
We haven't finalized that, but there will be some component of that, yes, in order to pay for the structure.
Not to harp on this.
Go ahead, Ken.
So are they going to be Costco size, like a Ford F-150 with mirrors can actually get in it? Or is it going to be Trader Joe's kind of parking where,
Great question.
you're welcome.
As far as the residential, under the residential building, they're 9-foot stalls, 9 feet wide, which is 6 inches wider than what's required by city. The parking structure is a little narrower generally, but we have to kind of balance that out. So obviously it's not final at this point, but that's given an 8.5-foot stall in the parking structure.
My mirrors fold in, so that's going to help. Thanks.
Okay.
You
So
just gotta buy 2 spots, Ken.
They don't have 2 spots. They've got 0.75.
we will have 2 spots for you.
0.75.
All right, so the additional things that we did that were really important for this project is there's going to be a high sustainability to the whole project. So we're looking at doing solar where it makes sense. The Board Mill Hotel building itself is going to have a lot of solar on top of its roof. We also have a lot of green roof areas, the portico cochere, some of the entryway to the commercial space toward the park. You can see a lot of that green space as well. And then the residential building will have solar facing to the southeast likely. And then the park building has the park on top, as you can see in this rendering, and then there'll be some more green roof that they'll be looking over the top of toward the water. So it's a really important piece. It's also part of some of our financing plans, and it just is really kind of a great way to kind of make this site sing. There's gonna be a lot of public that's gonna see it from above the site as well, so we're excited about that. Here's kind of a preliminary drawing of the exterior elevations of the hotel. So as you can see, there's the top floor, that fourth floor. We're kind of keeping it fairly low profile, so the overall height of the building is gonna be about 60 feet. You know, just to give you a general idea of scale, the 4 stories. We will have an active roof component of some sort over the addition, whether that's small gathering or medium-sized gathering spaces. We're looking to green the rest of that roof as well. So it'll be really nice to look right out onto the park and out of the water from that space. And here's the residential building. It is a taller building. We're at 85 feet to the midpoint of the highest gable, and that's how the city will measure that. And out of the 100-foot allowable. And so we're about 15 feet lower than their maximum. But you can also see the scale. We try to work with the scale. So the first 3 stories are going to be kind of more of a plinth, I'll call it. And then above that, they have more of a residential scale, those 4 stories above that. And so scale was important for us visually. Also, we wanted an interesting, exciting building. There's a lot of buildings out there that aren't so exciting. And so we were able to do that in tandem with each other on that.
You mean like all the buildings that
Yeah,
are
pretty much.
being
A
built
lot of
currently?
buildings, yes, yeah.
Back to the the original building, how much reuse of the interior is there? It looks like we're reusing the exterior. Is the interior just a throwaway and we keep the shell, or is there anything usable on the inside?
It's an interesting building. So the building itself is a steel building with a brick cladding that really is a skin. It's not doing structural work at all. Inside the building, there's a lot of columns. And so we're gonna keep as many columns as we can because we're putting a lot more additional load on the building. And so we're gonna likely keep all of the columns that we have in there. There's a couple of areas where there are some digesters and some massive concrete areas. We will probably remove those, but we're not sure. We have to get into costing and some of those things. And then the floor level where it currently stands, we're gonna work with that, even though there's some transitions we're gonna have to fill in at that level. So the concept is that to keep as much of that as we can. We're also planning on putting glazing where the existing, all the existing openings are at least a significant amount of them. So in the hotel rooms, there'll be a lot of glass, which will be pretty nice. So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Residential building, and then this is the park building. So we are going to face the park building with residential, primarily studio apartments. We're going to have 73 of those at this point. Some commercial space along the public street and on the corner, and then the rest of that will be residential. The large stair going up the side, which will be great. We've seen that example, and it's a great opportunity. We're still working, and we'll be talking with the city in continuation of how we deal with the parking structure that's facing the train tracks, because it's a parking structure, and so we want to kind of do that. We've seen some kinetic structures that kind of move with wind and some of those things, so that can work. Maybe planting. So those are some things we're still thinking about how to make it not look like a parking structure from above.
So when you say studios, you're looking at 700 to 900 square feet, basically,
300-400,
300-400
maybe 5. Yeah,
at the most.
yeah. So not too large on these ones. On the residential building, there'll be a larger studios.
And 0.75 parking spaces for the studios?
Yes. These might be more realistic at that, but yeah. And here's some renderings. So you can see the residential building there, the portico shade between the 2 structures. So a nice drop off, dry area. We're gonna plant that quite well. And then you can see the water and everything else beyond.
You gonna go straight to condo with those, or are you apartment
No,
first?
we will not. No, there'll be apartments. And then here's another view from the street, and we're looking at the hotel building, the residential beyond, and then the park building. Initially, we were looking at doing the access to parking here. We're probably going to change that with some discussions, but we haven't finalized those discussions. We just feel that it's too tight and too close to the railroad tracks, so we're probably going to, I'll show you this. We're likely going to access straight across from the hotel access. It'll provide better fire access, and it'll also provide a safer thoroughfare for passengers and pedestrians. So otherwise we would have to do a ride in, ride out right next to the train tracks, and we felt there was too much conflict there. The city did not say it was a problem, but the more we thought about it, we don't think that's the best option going forward. Here's a view from one of the hotel rooms looking over the porte-cochere toward the residential building. And then here's a view from the park. To the right of the page there, you can see a lot of outdoor gathering on the 3rd floor, so that's going to be a gathering space for the residents and also for any other people that can use that space. So that's kind of a nice area too. So that's just a general overview of that, and I think that's the end of the slideshow. So if you have any questions, or like, go sit down.
So in the board mill building, you're going to get 4 floors in there, the 3 floors in the existing building. How are you going to deal with what looks to be a problem with the windows on the 3rd floor? You're either going to have a short ceiling height on the 2nd floor, or
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's going to be around 8'6" ceiling in there.
okay, so not too bad.
Yeah, there'll be an intermediate, let's see if I can see a picture of that. Yeah, you can see lightly, there's an intermediate line going
Gotcha.
through there that's going to capture that. So there'll be kind of an industrial window system there that sometimes they'll have a horizontal line and sometimes they'll actually have a vertical line through it where we'll have walls intersecting it as well. So we're looking at maybe channel steel or something like that exposed on that end.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, so it's not as high as we'd like, but trying to work with the structure and keeping costs reasonable, we're going to keep it at that point.
And for the restaurant, in terms of like public spaces that people can come and use for restaurant, bar, run me through those again. There's the food court.
Yeah, so that the marketplace, which is about 8,000 square feet, and we'll have food vendors in there. So we're looking at a variety of vendors as options there. We may also have craft vendors, artisans, other things going on there. And then if we go back to the site plan, I'll show you. So this is outdoor eating space for that marketplace as well. So that's facing south, which is a really nice outdoor space. And then the restaurant inside the hotel itself is going to have a space that's here that's enclosed, and then potentially spill out area from that on the hotel building. And then there'll be additional space on the residential building that's not finally programmed, but there may be restaurant, there may be other items that we're going to put in there.
Any other questions or comments?
It's just nice to see that the residential part of it, so to speak, is taller than the board mill building, so that you get a little protection from our predominant weather in the winter time. That'll be nice for folks in the courtyards there. But other than that, it looks it's pretty exciting.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Carrie, if you please.
Motion to authorize Executive Director to execute an option to purchase real property between the Board Mill Group LLC and the Port of Bellingham for approximately 5.3 acres in the Waterfront District.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Sorry, yes.
Oh, yeah. He really had to think about that one. You guys got off easy.
It wasn't a sorry yes, it was a yes, yes.
Commissioner Bell?
Yeah, this is happening.
Yeah. And I'm a yes as well. So that carries 3-0. I think it's pretty momentous. This has been a long time coming, and a very substantial opportunity for our waterfront project, and something we've really been looking forward to for some time. So thank you for the partnership here. Appreciate it.
Thanks, commissioners.
Okay. All right, our next action item is, Carrie's gonna walk us through.
And you guys don't need to stick around for the rest of this, unless you really want to.
It wouldn't be bad form for us to get up and go celebrate this.
Not at all.
Perfect.
We'll save this spot. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Very much. It's incredible.
Motion to approve the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements, resolution number 1408. Greg McHenry.
Good evening, Commissioners. Greg McHenry, Senior Planning Analyst for the Port of Bellingham. This is pretty routine update to the comprehensive scheme of harbor improvements. It includes incorporation of the 2023 strategic budget, and as well as property transactions that have occurred in the past year, which include sales in both the waterfront district and in Sumas, according to their surplus resolutions. And then a couple property acquisitions, one at the airport in accordance with the BLI master plan, as well as the Marine Drive Industrial Park acquisition, also known as 742 Marine Drive. Any questions?
We've had this item a couple times now. We've had public comment on it. We've had a session specific on it in presentation. Commissioner Briscoe, do you have any further questions or comments?
No, I viewed the site with our director of real estate, and I think we've made a great acquisition there for Whatcom County, and Greg always does a good job, so thanks, Greg.
Okay. Commissioner Bell?
No, same. I echo Bobby's comments.
Yeah. All right. Carrie?
All right. Motion to approve the comp scheme of harbor improvements, resolution number 1408.
All right. Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Carries 3-0. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Greg.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, our last action item, we have Brian Gowron, and Carrie, if you please.
Sure. Authorize executive director to execute an authorization to proceed for Millworks LLC proposed Phase 2 project within the waterfront district.
Thanks, Carrie. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brian Gowron. So yeah, this is, the timing of this one's actually kind of pertinent to the action that you just took on the board mill group. So this is a very similar option that I referenced that we agreed to last year with the Millworks group. And they are on this next phase. This is their first deliverable under their option. And I'll just kind of start to walk through that. But this is for Phase 2 project concept design, which was submitted to us on March 31st by the Millworks group. Another great group that's been good to work with. Met with them multiple times on their design team, how they're incorporating in some of our initial comments on things that we had some concerns about, they really have addressed. And then I'll talk about some of the elements here that they've included in this concept. So just as a way of a reminder, similar to the purchase option that we just went through, they have a phased approval process, as well as does Harcourt. The first submittal is the project concept design. That's where that yellow star is. That's where we are right now. So it's for early first concepts, but ready to start working with the city on their design review and land use permitting. So first action pending commission approval is that we would issue this authorization to proceed. We would work with them on a site access agreement so they can get in there and start doing more design work, getting their geotechnical work, their civil survey, that kind of thing. They will then also submit a land use application and design review package to the city of Bellingham. That includes the city-led public process. Once they've gotten their comments back and any revisions made out of that, they'll come back to us with a more detailed project development design submittal. Once that is approved by the commission, pending commission approval, then they'll move forward with more detailed building permit applications. When those come through and they have final permits in hand, their financing in place, then we would move forward on a property sale. So very similar to what we just talked through with the board mill group. So again, early in the process, but this is a site plan of the Phase 2 project. They're outlined in the kind of light blue. It's on the former Lignan parcel on the corner of Laurel and Cornwall. It's adjacent to the Mercy Housing project, which is considered Phase 1, which is currently under construction, and actually they're going vertical. Their walls are starting to pop up. They're moving really quickly on that, which is great to see. These two projects have been well coordinated between Mercy and the Millworks group. Millworks submitted their project concept design to us on March 31st. It's approximately a 140,000 square foot mixed-use building on a concrete podium that's located on Laurel Street. Just to walk through some of the more details of it, it's a 7-story building that meets all the building and height requirements and view corridors that are within the sub-area plan and the Bellingham Development Code. It has a ground floor food campus with commercial kitchens, retail space, incubator space, food processing, a demo kitchen, kind of commissary kitchens that can be used by food trucks, other kind of startups that are kind of looking for that space. So a fair amount of space dedicated to that. You can see there on the front side here, they have kind of this retail, maybe it could be a restaurant that could spill out again on that south side, similar to what Sean was just saying for like the market. So that's a really active space that could be used to kind of spill out into the street or the street side. The second floor is a shared office space and meeting space and classroom dedicated mostly for nonprofit groups. And then there's 5 floors of residential that's focused on workforce housing with a variety of different kind of affordability price points that they're still working through, but they also are anticipating that at least one floor would be an ownership model. So they could condominiumize at least one of those floors, and there could be an affordable ownership model that I know we've talked about in the commission meetings before. That's something that's been of interest to have down here and in our community in general. And then the other thing that's not really shown on this this rendering though is that there's a multi-level parking structure that's kind of tucked away on the backside that will include the accommodating a lot of the parking for Mercy. Again, we're trying to get a lot of this surface parking off of there so we can utilize the space more efficiently and for more density. So a multi-level parking structure that also has a plaza on the top that would be a publicly accessible plaza that has event space that can have weddings and other things that can spill out on there, and then some urban gardens that are can be used by the food processing campus or even by the residences. And then you can see, I'll go back to one of the first renderings that just shows that this is kind of that plaza that then could have a spill out from, over the railroad tracks, and then a kind of a staircase that comes down to access down to Laurel. So another kind of exciting and unique designs that are starting to pop up in the waterfront district, which is really really cool to see. Yeah, so this is just pending Port Commission authorization. We'd issue that authorization to proceed. Within 120 days of that, they would be required to submit their submittal to the city. So and they're pretty close on that already. That'll be then a city-led process, and then subsequent deliverables will come back from those steps. Final occupancy is still, per the option, is December 31st of 2027. And we've met multiple times, and they're on track with that. They think that's totally achievable timeline for them as well. So with that, staff recommends approval. This is something we've been working with them on. It's consistent with things we've asked for. And again, a great team to work with. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Commissioner Bell, do you have any questions or comments?
Just one on the commercial space below for the food campus area. What's the route that delivery vehicles would use? I envision that the trucks would be larger in size and that it wouldn't be just your normal traffic pattern.
Yeah, that's a great question. And you can kind of show here, they did the original, if you recall, like one of the original food campus, which was a much larger food campus. This is more like the kind of demo kitchens and commissary kitchen space, less of the larger semi delivery. That was the limiting factor here. There just wasn't space for any kind of semi access. They do have access for kind of box truck size though. And actually you can kind of see this rendering shows it coming in. This little guy there's a loading dock right back there. So that the retail space is on one side, the warehousing and demo kitchens on the other side. So that kind of backs in off the street. And that's where they're having their loading zone now. But it's again, much smaller kind of Joe's Garden type of box trucks than this large semis.
Yeah, so you're looking at maybe a 20-foot box on the back rather than a 40-foot.
You're right.
Wouldn't necessarily go through.
Right. They could do some things with timing. You see that a lot in the more busy areas. I mean, they do have, there's larger grocery stores in downtown Seattle that they get deliveries, but they just have to time it right. So if there's a need for that, I'm sure they could figure some of that out with some of the timing.
Yeah, you can imagine that especially with restaurants and things like that, you're going to have beer deliveries. Those trucks aren't small either, right? So having commercial size access.
Right.
That would be my only.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be feedback.
Report back. Yeah,
just definitely will do.
Like to see the smooth flow because that could really tie up traffic.
Right.
If you've got a truck sitting out there in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Delivering rather than having a protected place to pull in.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing I can show you just so you see, I mean, this map kind of shows, this is some of the residential drop-off parking. There's also then a kind of a turnaround drop-off for the early learning center. So this is all a shared common access easement that could be, some of these turning radiuses might be tight for a large truck, but there is ways to kind of get off and still have flow through there. But that's a good feedback. I'll ask them to kind of provide more detail on in future submittals.
And then just from an aesthetic standpoint, how does this compare to what we just saw with the hotel? Are we consistent with our architecture?
Yeah.
It's not going to be vastly different.
No, I think actually I was kind of I was personally pleasantly surprised by this.
I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job. The glazing there on the front end is kind of has a kind of defines that corner. It's a gateway entry to the site. So the fact that the Mercy project is a little bit smaller than we had thought, maybe on that corner, this actually then kind of stands out behind it. It's also at the scale of the alcohol plant on the other side of the track, so you can kind of just start to see it's about the same scale, so it does fit, with the space. Personal aesthetics are everybody's own personal choice, but the color scheme, of course, that's just a placeholder for now. But it does. I feel does a good job of representing the kind of the gateway entry to the site.
Just wanted to.
Yep.
And love the stairs.
Yeah.
But given the fact that you've also got a gym across the street, you realize what those are going to be used for. Most mornings, it's going to be a lot of traffic, right?
Yeah.
That's all I've got.
Okay.
Commissioner Briscoe?
A couple questions, Brian. Could you bring back up that rendering you just had up there? I'm having trouble getting the picture. There you go.
Okay. Yeah.
So that street we see with the cars passing in the front there, what street is that?
That's Laurel Street, and then this is the corner of Cornwall here. So this is the cycle track, the green truck, and the PSE Encogen is on the kind of the far right of this photo. So that's Laurel Street.
Okay. So how will they be entering from the other end then?
No, this is a one way in, one way out. So this is the only entrance and exit to this site. It's a shared common access easement that both sites can use. There's a turnaround and drop off for the early learning center on the interior, and then the parking structure is back at the back end. But it's a two-way street or access road that'll come in and out.
Because of the grade changes on Cornwall, it was impossible to get an exit or an entrance on Cornwall, so they're stuck with just one.
That's right.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure the road I see in the background back there. I was trying to figure out if they were going out that way or what was going on. Very good.
Right. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. In the foreground, in the back distance, that's not the upper portion of the bluff. Yeah, that doesn't connect. That's right.
I'm really glad to see this because honestly, everybody knows I had my doubts, and I'm really glad to see that we're moving forward and this is going to happen. So it's great.
Great.
That's all I have.
Same parking constraints as the hotel, basically 0.75.
Yeah, same parking requirements. It's one of those. That's kind of one of those arguments that we're trying in the waterfront district. It was one of those where we adopted more restrictive parking requirements to kind of bring cars off the route, make it more pedestrian focused. But then for operational purposes, that can be a problem. So actually, both of these projects have done a great job of stepping up to kind of figure out a creative way to provide that parking without just having giant surface parking lots, right? So it kind of feels like it's working.
Yeah, and by that time, by 2025, 2028, maybe there'll probably be a lot reduced automobile traffic anyway.
Right.
So it'll take care of itself.
Well, I'm really excited. We've asked several times about the variety of construction we'll see in the variety of development, and I think we're seeing it here in this project. We've seen a lot of residential proposed and in process, which is good, but this is bringing in a different element that's going to activate space in a different way, activate jobs in a different way, and give people a different way to live and work down there, between the office and these kind of commercial spaces. It's really just providing a variety, which certainly I've been looking for, and I've heard other comments about as well. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I agree. I think both of these projects we see tonight have done a great job of thinking through the programming, not just the we're gonna build residential only, and then we'll let the retail and whatever fill in later. It's like they really are thinking about the programming of these spaces. And I think the RFP of the hotel was kind of like port-led. This is one where it was the developer-led, and they've been consistent with the concept and keep carrying it through. So yeah, no, I think that's a big part of what we're seeing some success down there.
Yeah, and we're also gonna see the mixed income livability too, which is something we hear loud and clear from the community of interest.
Yep.
And I just have to, you know, I can't not be struck by the fact that 6 or 7 years ago, there were still fences up around the waterfront district. And to think of where we are today with, on our agenda, we approved Corex putting in the utility to have district heating and cooling for the entire site. We've had the Millworks development here. We've approved the pathway for the board mill. It's a very consequential agenda for the waterfront, a lot going on, and a real marker of how that site has changed. And, you know, it's felt like it's taken forever, but when we think back to how recently the public couldn't access that site, couldn't physically go hang out on that pump track and do everything else that we have today, and we'll really see 2028 and 2027 are going to be here before we know it.
Right.
For these two projects, and this area is going to look dynamically different.
Yep, that's exciting. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, it's just, I hope the credit goes where it belongs, and that's with you, the staff. Rob and you guys put all this together. We get credit for a lot of things that we're not responsible for. This is clearly you guys putting the plan in place, putting a vision in place, and carrying it out. And so, as a commissioner, thank you very much for all of the great work, because we're going to get the credit, but you really should, because it does flow down to you and the rest of your staffs. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You know, the teams
Speak to the room in general.
Yeah, the team's great, and the partners too, like the city and Department of Ecology, all the partners that have made this happen for sure. No, this is a huge community-based effort. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, Carrie, if you please.
Authorize Executive Director to execute an authorization to proceed for Millworks LLC proposed Phase 2 project within the Waterfront District.
Commissioner Bell,
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Briscoe,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. So
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
carries 3-0. Thank you very much.
Oops, I did the wrong.
Okay, it looks like mostly port people in the room and online, but I'll make a call for any additional public comments. Anyone in the room? Anybody online on Zoom who would like to provide public comment? I don't see any either. So we will move into the last phase of our meeting, which is other business. Carrie, do you have a other business item to kick us off?
Sure. I just wanted to give everybody an update. Our second annual Marine Trade Industry Job Fair, and this year we kind of threw in a Try a Trade Day. And so far there is 26 businesses that are participating. It's going to be Thursday, May 4th from 10 to 1 at the Fisherman's Pavilion. And this year, pretty cool. We got Trident Seafood is purchasing lunch for all the students. And last year we had 2 buses of students come, which was very disappointing. And this year we have every school but one participating and 150 RSVPs so far. So we're excited. And LFS is threw in a Yeti cooler to give away, and the Good Time Girls is gonna be there singing some sea shanties, so it's gonna be a good time.
Love it. We've got several different efforts underway for creating and supporting that pipeline of employment into our marine trade sector, which is really important and something we've been interested in, and I'm really grateful to see happening in several different ways. Okay. All
And
right.
I'd just like to add a thank you to Carrie because she's kind of spearheaded this and kept it going, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of work to do this. So thank you, Carrie, for moving this along.
Thank you, Bobby.
Okay, other business, Commissioner Briscoe.
I have none at this time.
All right, Commissioner Bell.
Just a couple of things to note. Had the pleasure of taking a tour of the Harcourt condos with Rob the other day. Just a note, to Harcourt's credit, they put a good product on the table when they do get to it. It's going to be a phenomenal building, just taking a lot longer and a lot more heartache than it was worth at some point. But clearly what they're building down there is grade A, and it's going to be a spectacular building, and it's going to attract some phenomenal people. And if you haven't been down there to see where it is now, go take a look, because it's going to be special. And the views from some of those rooms are going to be remarkable. So it will be one of the best places in the city to want to be. And I'm excited about the fact that that's coming along. Then I wanted to let you guys know that we're headed to Vegas to the Allegiant Airline annual meeting to discuss with Allegiant what's happening at our airport, along with all the rest of the airports from around. I've never been to that one. Also never been to Copenhagen, but just saying.
Was that a
But-
subtle hint or what?
I just didn't get to go. But I'm looking forward to that, just to see where.
Vegas is almost the same.
Sure it is. Sure it is. But I'm looking forward to that. And then also wanted to I'm going to be taking advantage of the direct flight to Denver. As you all know, I've got family there, and just wanted to let Southwest know that that's being used. Editorially, it couldn't be any more inconvenient because it's just Saturday to Saturday. Would love to have something in the middle of the week, and I don't know how we communicate that, but I'm convinced that that would have been I'm actually going to spend a couple more days there because of the Saturday to Saturday. But looking forward to that, and looking forward to Southwest coming to the table with a few more options. And then I just can't let the week go by without talking about South Hill and the noise at the shipping terminal. We really are working hard, and I just wanted to let the public know, and I want everybody to know that we have a real interest in making sure that we don't disturb the South Hill neighborhood any more than we absolutely have to. But that being said, there's a tremendous amount of work going on there, and I'm just thankful for the fact that they are there and that they're working with us as a partner. And we're maintaining our dialogue with the South Hill Neighborhood Association. My request to you, maybe Joe, is that if you guys could go to a couple of those South Hill meetings, just to let them know what it means to you to have that work down there. It would do us a big favor because you have a vested interest in that as well. So thank you for being here. But clearly there's people in the Neighborhood Association that are going to fight this, and they're going to fight it to the end, and they're going to use whatever means they can to stop it. And we just can't let that happen, and we can't let our guard down, and we can't relax because work means something. And we've always said we need to manufacture more and ship more and do more here, and we finally provided the opportunity for that to happen. And my last comment on this is that given the port that we've got, given the infrastructure we've got, given the depth of the water that we've got, given the access in and out, there's very few things that we could do as well as this. And so this is one of those industries that makes sense for us. And it is going to be a battle for us to make sure that we do it right, and that we put the pressure on ABC to do the best job they can and to keep it safe. But I didn't want this day to go by without letting everybody know that we're doing our damnedest to try to make sure that that is a safe, clean, quieter operation than it currently is. And then I just had a question, Brian, this is kind of for you. There's just been a lot of discussion about the dirt as we do the cleanup on the waterfront. operations. And I know that we've got a proposal from Harcourt for the way they're going to dispose of dirt. And I've noticed that Dawson has been able to get rid of theirs pretty easily. I'm assuming there's a different contamination level there than there is over at this. And then the question then falls to, what is the hotel going to encounter when they start to excavate?
Yeah, right. No, they're great questions, and they're kind of all individual. I mean, the case by case and kind of project by project. The Dawson Mercy project, actually, if you recall, we went through a cleanup and did a full removal of all that. That was 100% funded by the Department of Ecology as a cleanup action that we did right ahead of their project. So actually, everything they're working in there now is clean. It's either imported or was down to kind of native clean material. So they were just working in a little bit different environment. The Harcourt project partially is that any other project in that footprint of the area where we've done cleanup already, where it was a capped area, you can stage that material and then put it back in place after you're done. And so for their example, they have an excavation, and there's areas where that once they've poured their footings, their foundation for their parking structure, they have backfill that they need to backfill anyway. So they can take that material and put it back because it was already there, and then just recap it. And so then whatever's left over from that. So once they're getting to that phase of their project right now where they're almost done with all the excavation and the forming up of their basement, and they're going to be backfilling around it. You can see that around building A, around the acid ball now. There used to be kind of a cut. Now that's all backfilled in, and it's graded out. So they've been using that material. Whatever's left over then, that's what they have to manage and dispose of. And the proposal they've brought to us, and actually I've just had some correspondence with them today, is that they have to work with the Department of Ecology and the Health Department under their solid waste regulations on how that can be done. So we can help support them on that. We'd like to understand it a little bit better. But if the Department of Ecology and the Health Department are okay with that, then it may be a cost savings, and it may be a beneficial reuse of material that otherwise would just get taken to a landfill that doesn't need to. So we just need to understand it a little bit better.
Just out of curiosity on that, when we walked through, we did see quite a bit of clay.
Yeah.
How much of that clay was imported to put the cap on, and how much of that is naturally occurring clay?
Well, the majority of that material, because of where they're at, again, the site was filled over time. So where those condos are right next to the Whatcom Waterway. So when Whatcom Waterway was originally dredged, it was just thrown over the side, and that's why they're in that really silty, clayey material that was actually created when the Whatcom Waterway was originally dredged. Then you get further back towards the bluff, and the native ground is coming up a little bit higher, and then there's just a variety of different fills type of
So the
things.
clay is a natural clay. It's not what they use to cap.
That's right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's exactly right.
It wasn't a cap fill.
No. The gravel, the kind of that coarse gravel is really what the cap is. And then the future, to the board mill question, that's one of the reasons, for example, that the parking structure needs to have a little bit more time, because we need to work through that with the Department of Ecology. That's in an area that hasn't been cleaned up under a cap, but we want to work with them pretty closely. And then the hotel, they're going to have a very similar setting as Harcourt, but they need to understand it a little bit better on what's under the cap in that area. It's a little different than what was over by the Harcourt condo. So each project's going to be a case-by-case basis, but we're really there to help with that, help walk through it, work with the Department of Ecology. We've got great relationships with them, and try to help kind of guide that process to make it as cost-effective for the project, as well as making sure nobody's in any kind of liability.
And you expect the same basic contamination level and the same constituents at that end of the hotel as you did as Harcourt encountered?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you said the area around the Board Mill Park building has not been cleaned up yet?
That's right. That's part of it. It's part of there's these two units on the site. One has gone through the environmental cleanup, which where like trackside and the capping is at. The way the line just happened to be drawn, that just kind of bisects that parking lot right now. So that area hasn't gone through the formal cleanup process with Ecology. But our cleanup plan that Ecology's approved doesn't require anything to happen there. Oh. There's no contamination that we know of. It's really just more like it just hasn't been rubber stamped that this is okay to do, so it's just going to take a little work to make sure that Ecology's tracking all that.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to ask if it needed cleanup.
No.
If we could, do another 100% project at, 100% match from Ecology for making those studios affordable if there was any benefit there, but it sounds like there's not a need.
Yeah, we don't think there's a need, so I think that's gonna make that project a lot easier. We just need to kind of go through the more of an administrative process to confirm all that.
Okay. Is there anything else?
That's all I had.
A couple things. Rob, I saw there's some new dirt down by the pump track going around the tile tanks. What's happening there?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of an expansion on the pump track. I was a bit surprised to see the dirt showed up because I haven't seen a final plan for what we're expanding there, so I've got to get with the mountain bike club and talk to that. But they came across some good quality dirt and they wanted to get it while we could. Sometimes we have a hard time finding good dirt, so we've stockpiled it down there and then we'll develop a plan on that expansion.
Is it going to go around the tank?
Correct, yeah. There was a lot of talk about doing another big advanced jump line around there. I'm pushing back on that. I'd rather see more pump track. I think the advanced jump lines appeal to a certain crowd, and but that's a smaller crowd than just rides the general pump track. So the mountain bike club and I will debate that and figure out how to go forward.
Okay. All right. And is that expected to be open for this summer or
They're hopeful to get it done in time for the tune-up.
for the tune-up?
So that's not where the gondola is gonna go?
That
No comment.
would be fun.
April 1st. You weren't the only one to fall for it, I'll just say that. I got a few texts.
How come I wasn't asked?
Roped into that.
Oh, funny. Couple questions on ABC. Ken brought up, our relationship and wanting to do the best we can with being a good neighbor. We've talked a couple times about the 11 to 3 shift. It's my opinion that that is one target that the association is going to be very diligent in bringing up to us. And in my conversations with the longshoremen and with Rob, it seems that there's flexibility with still completing the work in a timely manner and eliminating one of the most vociferous complaint periods of the day, which is that period when people are really truly trying to sleep and there is ongoing noise. Where are we at with that?
Yeah, there's going to be some things to work through on that. I met with ABC yesterday and proposed a reduction in hours. It wasn't as well received maybe as I had hoped it would be, but there is a path forward, and I need to have a meeting with the longshoremen on Thursday morning, so I'm going to talk to them a little bit about it, and we're going to see if we can't put all the parties together and get some reduction of hours there, so we're not hitting that. I'm trying to get rid of the midnight to 3 shift, so we'll see if we can do that.
Okay. Well, I think that shift in particular, especially as we get to summer time when more people have windows open or out, it's going to be a constant source of communication.
I agree. There's some other things ABC has done, though, that I think go well and they should get some credit for. They changed out their back alarms from being the high-pitched beep to more of a lower pitch. That's still accepted by OSHA, but it doesn't quite, it won't carry as far as the high-pitched beeps were. So I think that'll be a big help. I'm not sure when that happened, but it was after the last loadout, I believe. Yeah, so those new backup alarms were not in place for the last loadout, and they will be in place for the next one.
Great. All right. Last one for ABC, there's been some news coverage about stormwater. I had asked a question about a couple months ago about stormwater, and when I asked the question, the response was a little bit obscure in terms of who manages what in terms of stormwater. It's come up in the news recently with some coverage about our compliance with stormwater, and wondering if either Rob or Brian could update us on
Sure.
that and give them a little bit more clarity.
I think the article was a little misleading because it kind of indicated that we were operating without a stormwater permit, and that's just not the case. We have our own stormwater permit, and any activities at the shipping terminal since I've been at the port has been done under the port's stormwater permit. So when we're loading logs or any of these other commodities, they were done under our permit. Our plan was to have ABC get their own ISD GP, Industrial Stormwater General Permit. But we were going to wait till they moved because they're in a temporary location right now. As we got them into their more permanent location, we're going to require them to get their own ISGP, and we thought they'd use ours in the interim. Ecology came out, they did a site inspection, they noticed some deficiencies, and they requested that ABC get their own ISGP. So ABC is currently working on getting their own ISGP at a more accelerated timeline than we had originally planned. And then the other deficiencies that Ecology noticed during their visit have all been corrected.
And so they have to get their own stormwater permit and plan on their own expense.
Correct.
How do we, it's a big site and people move all over the site. How do we track what contaminants are impacting what stormwater?
Well, they'll have to do their own grading so that their stormwater all drains to their own tank. So similar to what like Phil Reese did up at Seaview, they'll have a treatment system put in place there, and they'll have to make sure that it drains to that treatment system.
Okay, so Ecology will have to sign off that this makes sense given that the use that they are proposing, and the ASB is not an option for them to use as their stormwater anymore.
In the long run, definitely, the ASB is going to be coming offline. So that's always been planned, is that in the near future, in the next few years, that's going to be coming offline anyway. So we have built in the anticipation that they were going to be getting their own ISGP at that time. They can, like Rob said, they'll just have to capture and treat their stormwater before discharging it into even the ASB system. So that'll be something that'll be monitored. There'll be requirements for monitoring for certain, like turbidity and other things like that are part of the ISGP requirements, and then they just report that. So right now there are the whole area is covered by permits. It's Ecology's position that they need to go ahead and get their own, even to discharge into the ASB system, which does not even discharge to Bellingham Bay. So it's actually a very protective system. There's no water discharging from the ABC leasehold into Bellingham Bay because the ASB is completely sealed off. So it's more of an administrative process, in my opinion, and if that's where Ecology wants that to go, we'll work with them and help support ABC again. We've done this a number of times. We have our ISGP on the terminal, like Rob mentioned, and we can help them, walk through that process as well.
Okay.
And in the long run, we'll have a whole segregated system where when we do pull the ASB offline, we're master planning a stormwater system now, because there will be water that'll have to discharge to Bellingham Bay. All of that water will be segregated by leasehold area. Then that water will be collected, treated per the whatever industry happens to be there, ABC, logs, whatever it is. Then they will capture and treat their water before discharging into the stormwater system. And then they have to meet certain benchmarks for that.
Okay. How long does it take for them to acquire this permit?
Well, this is one, that's one it's a number of months, just through this Ecology process. You issue a notice of intent to get a permit. We weren't anticipating this until fairly recently because like Rob mentioned, we thought that this was covered under the ASB permit. So haven't really geared that up, but we met with ABC this late last week, and then we brought them in contact with Ecology to start that process.
But in summary, we have a permit, we are in compliance, we are working with Ecology to address, we've already addressed their things they've asked us to, and our tenant is on their pathway to getting their own permit as needed.
That's right.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, Brian, my last question is about the culvert down by Bellingham Cold Storage on Squalicum. It's a complicated culvert because it's got multi-parties. It's got the city and us and private. There's also the railroad. And I was recently at a salmon release event, and the city team was there, and the director of Fish and Wildlife for our region was there, and everyone was aware of that project and the interest in getting that culvert upgraded and replaced. The feedback I heard from the partners was that there's money, there's interest, everything is kind of available to make that project happen, except we're not getting the support or cooperation we need from the railroad. Is that your assessment as well for this project, and what should we do to get some motion?
Yeah, no, that's a great one. That's an actively moving project as far as like the targets and kind of like a lot of people working on it right now, and it has definitely elevated to the kind of like front burner type of project a lot of people are working on. We actually have had the railroad engaged on that in a very constructive way. And there's been a lot of grants that we've been pursuing with different agencies potentially as the lead. And right now the city has kind of really stepped up and is starting to kind of manage that a little bit more actively. And so what I would recommend is that we maybe grab a commission update on that at an upcoming meeting, because there's a number of people all working on different pieces of it right now, and I'd rather give you a kind of a better answer.
Okay.
But the short answer is, you're right. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of interest in it. There's a lot of support for it. We've even had some grants that Lummi Nation and Nooksack Tribes wrote support letters supporting those. So a lot behind it. And we've had some preliminary discussions with the railroad that were very constructive. But let me get a team and we can get that on an agenda in the future.
Okay,
Does that work?
that works for me. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments for other
I have a
business?
couple.
Yeah.
After listening
Oh,
to
good.
my fellow commissioners, I need to say a couple of things here. To say the least, I was slightly upset at the reporting and the writings done in the two newspapers that I read. I would really ask that the editors of these newspapers check the stories that they're given to print in their papers. Maybe give the port a call and check to see if actually what's being said about the port that they're doing is actually going on, and speak to staff. You know, we spoke to everything that they said we weren't doing this evening, and we're doing it all correctly. You know, everybody in this country wants recycling done. Everybody in this country wants jobs created. Those are two of the things we've done, and we've been environmentally correct in the manner we've done it. And if there are corrections to be made, they're made as soon as possible. You know, some things go unseen or are unforeseen. And it really kind of ranks me that we've got people that move to this county and criticize everything we do that have no history here, or really understand what we're doing. That terminal created thousands of jobs over the last 80 to 100 years, you know, and it needs to create jobs again, and it is creating jobs again. And we're trying to, you know, do everything we can to curtail the noise that's annoying, as well as now we're talking about reducing hours, which, you know, we may have to do. We don't know. But it's not like the Port of Bellingham is trying to destroy the waterfront, as stated in one of the papers, which really rankled me. You know, we're doing everything we can to make that environmentally friendly a site for an industrial area as possible. And, you know, you can't have all these high-tech jobs that they want to bring there that they think are environmentally friendly. Look at the high-tech world, what's going on there. There has to be more in this county than high-tech jobs. And you know, there's jobs that people sweat at. They don't sit at a computer, and those jobs are needed to make the world go around for those people that are sitting at their computers, not sweating. So please get your facts straight and print your information correctly if you're going to accuse somebody of something. And that's all I have to say about it.
Okay, anything else?
Maybe Carrie can give us an update of what's opening at the Portal when.
Oh, yeah.
So April 29th, there's going to be April Brews Day there. And then some of the containers have already had some soft openings, but for the most part, May 5th is when the containers are going to open up. Caution, Silky Scoop, and our kitchen, and Rain or Shine has already had a few soft days, and so has Sunnyland Bikes.
Oh, wow. Is April Brews Day going to continue to be a fundraiser for Max Higbee Center like it has
Yes,
been in
it
the
is.
past?
Yes,
Oh,
it is.
It's a
It
lot of fun
is.
event.
Yep, so we're looking forward to that. And if you go to the port's website and you scroll down to the bottom and you click on the Portal Container Village, there's a calendar in there and it's showing all of our events, and it's filling up as time goes forward into the summer, so we're excited about it.
Am I correct that there's several new containers, like 5 new containers coming for some expansion?
Yep, so I don't know if we should talk
don't-
about it because we don't have agreements.
We don't want to name names yet because we don't have signed leases with the folks, but we're pretty far along with a couple organizations. Probably won't open this season, though, probably not till next season. You'll see some construction activity on these containers this summer, but I don't think we'll be able to get them finally open until next year.
Yeah, but we do have Dig Deep's signed agreement, and they're gonna be a pop-up container, and they are gonna rent mountain bikes and do mountain bike tours. And they don't have set hours, but they're gonna be open the same as the food trucks. So starting May 4th and going until September 30th. And we are having 2 more food trucks this year than we did last year.
Great. And will we still have the farmer's market on Wednesdays? Not
The
this year.
farmer's market is not going to be there this year. We do have something fun in its place, but we haven't, the agreement's not signed yet, so we'll have to wait to give you an update.
Is the Wednesday market going back to Fairhaven, or what's it doing?
It's down off of Railroad.
Oh.
By the depot. Oh, is there not the depot anymore? Oh, that's on Saturday. Oh, both locations.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay. We're done.